If someone asked you to name the strangest thing about a giraffe, your first instinct might be to point at that ludicrously long neck, the coat patterned like a patchwork quilt, or the awkward way it runs as though it just borrowed someone else's legs. But the real oddity lurks where you least expect it, inside its mouth. More specifically, that deep purple, almost black tongue that looks like it belongs in a fantasy novel rather than on a peaceful leaf muncher. Why would evolution hand a giraffe a goth-inspired tongue? Grab your metaphorical safari hat and maybe some sunscreen, because the answer is a delightful mix of biology, survival. Nature's built-in sunscreen. Giraffes are what scientists call mega herbivores, enormous plant-eating machines who spend the bulk of their lives eating. An adult giraffe can consume between 15 and 75 pounds of leaves every single day. That's not a quick lunch break, it's an all-day buffet. Picture hour after hour of tongue stretching and leaf pulling beneath the brutal African sun. Now imagine doing that without any protection. A giraffe's tongue is basically a strip of sensitive skin constantly hanging out of its mouth like a slow-motion party streamer. Without some sort of defense, it would be the UV equivalent of a forgotten tourist on a beach. Crispy, peeling, and miserable by midday. Evolution, however, is no fool. It equipped giraffes with an abundance of melanin, the same pigment that protects human skin from sun damage, concentrated in the tongue's front half. The result is that moody purple-black shade that blocks ultraviolet rays. It's essentially SPF 50 permanently installed. The back half of the tongue, which stays tucked safely inside the mouth, remains an ordinary baby pink. Why waste pigment where the sun never shines? Half a meter of pure genius. Of course, the color is just the beginning of the giraffe tongue's brilliance. This thing is long, absurdly long, stretching up to half a meter. That's about 20 inches of muscle capable of twisting, curling, and wrapping around branches like a botanical spaghetti fork. The primary target of all this effort is the acacia tree, a sort of salad bar designed by someone with a grudge. Acacias are delicious but armed with vicious, needle-like thorns. Most animals wisely move on. Giraffes? They lean in. Their tongues aren't just long, they're armored. Tiny, tough, bristle-like papillae line the surface, giving it a texture somewhere between sandpaper and velvet, ideal for resisting cuts. Even when a thorn sneaks past this defense, giraffes have another secret weapon: their saliva. Studies suggest it has antiseptic properties. In other words, if a giraffe gets pricked, it just licks the wound and keeps eating. The whole system is so efficient it's almost comical. The tree tries to stab, the giraffe shrugs and takes another bite. Meet the okapi, the goth cousin in the rainforest. Giraffes aren't the only animals rocking dark tongues. Meet the okapi, their elusive and slightly eccentric cousin. Imagine a creature that seems to have been designed by a committee that couldn't agree. It's part zebra, part deer, and part giraffe. Okapis live deep in the rainforests of Central Africa, far from the open savanna. You might wonder why an animal that spends its life under a dense leafy canopy would bother with a sun-resistant tongue. The answer lies in a quirk of the forest called tree fall gaps. When an ancient towering tree collapses, it leaves a hole in the canopy and creates a sudden patch of bright, unfiltered sunlight. Okapis love to forage in these little open-air restaurants where the foliage is fresh and accessible. In those bright spots, their dark, melanin-packed tongues make perfect sense. And just like their lanky cousins, okapis have tongues so long they can casually clean their own ears. A party trick both impressive and slightly unsettling. The polar bear's unexpected goth phase. If you think dark tongues are only useful in sun-drenched environments, think again. Up in the icy Arctic, polar bears have tongues that mature into a deep bluish black, but for the opposite reason. Instead of blocking sunlight, polar bears use their pigmentation to absorb it. The Arctic is brutally cold, and any scrap of warmth is precious. Dark colors capture and hold onto heat better than pale ones, which is why a black t-shirt feels hotter than a white one under the sun. Polar bear cubs start with pink tongues, but as they grow, their tongues darken to match their famously black skin. Yes, polar bears have black skin under that translucent fur that only appears white because it scatters light. For a creature living in a deep freeze, every bit of absorbed solar warmth counts even on your tongue. When blue is a warning sign. And then there's Australia, because of course Australia has something to add. Enter the blue-tongued skink, a stout little lizard with a spectacular party trick. Unlike giraffes and polar bears, its tongue isn't about sun or heat, it's about scaring the daylights out of predators. When threatened, a skink opens its mouth wide and flashes an electric blue tongue that glows even more brilliantly under ultraviolet light. It's the reptilian version of screaming "boo!" Researchers from Macquarie University discovered that skinks time this display carefully. Too early and they blow their camouflage. Too late and the predator's already biting. When done at the right moment, the sudden shock of color paired with hissing and body inflation can stop an attack mid-flight, especially from birds whose hunting style depends on quick, precise strikes. It's a last-ditch defense, but an effective one. Evolution's favorite playground. What's fascinating about these wildly different animals is how they've each turned the same body part into a completely different survival tool. Giraffes and okapis have tongues that double as sun umbrellas. Polar bears use theirs as tiny thermal panels. Skinks have turned their tongues into neon back-off signs. One organ, four completely distinct solutions to life's problems. Evolution doesn't specialize, it improvises. It's also clever about efficiency. Notice how only the working end of a giraffe's tongue, the part constantly exposed while browsing, is pigmented. There's no need to waste energy producing melanin for the half that stays sheltered. Nature is frugal but smart, the everyday life of a leaf-harvesting tongue. When you step back, the giraffe tongue is a masterpiece of multitasking. It's long enough to reach leaves most animals can't, tough enough to wrestle with thorns, and equipped with its own disinfectant. It's so dexterous that giraffes can delicately strip leaves while avoiding the spines, making the acacia tree's defenses look almost silly. Add the built-in sunscreen and you've got an all-in-one survival gadget. Part salad tongs, part first aid kit, part UV shield. Next time you see a giraffe calmly grazing, remember that it's not just casually eating. It's executing a highly refined strategy honed over millions of years. The tree may have spikes, but the giraffe has patience, skill, and a tongue that's practically bulletproof. A brief moment for the trees. Imagine the daily drama from the tree's perspective. You spend decades growing tall and spiky, confident that your defenses will keep freeloaders away. Then one day a giraffe wanders up, flicks out a half-meter-long black, thorn-proof tongue, and starts plucking your carefully protected leaves with the precision of a surgeon. You stab, it shrugs. You bleed it, it self-heals. It's enough to make any tree rethink its life choices. More than just a party fact, it's easy to think of the giraffe's purple tongue as just one of those quirky animal trivia bits. Right up there with sloths can swim and platypuses lay eggs. But it's actually a perfect case study in how animals adapt in clever, sometimes surprising ways. For giraffes, thriving under a blazing African sun meant more than just growing a long neck. It meant developing a feeding tool that could survive both sunlight and the vicious defenses of their favorite food. Okapis remind us that even a shady rainforest can have sun traps. Polar bears prove that color isn't only about hiding or protection, but can also be about warmth. And skinks demonstrate that sometimes the best use of color is to shout, "Don't mess with me." And there you have it, the wild, wonderfully weird story behind the giraffe's purple tongue. If you enjoyed learning about this surprisingly cool survival hack, hit that like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. And remember, stay curious, stay amazed, and always wear your sunscreen. Unless you're a giraffe.